Now, Nigel Farage surprised many people this week by suggesting he might back a second referendum on EU membership, making him an unlikely ally, albeit temporarily, with the likes of Sir Nick Clegg, Lord Adonis, and my next guest, Chuka Umana, who himself is travelling to Brussels tomorrow with Anna Soubry, Dominic Grieve, and a few others to meet Michel Barnier to put forward the argument against a hard Brexit. Mr Umana, many thanks for being with us.
Thank you for having me on.
We'll talk about your trip to Brussels in just a second, but a little earlier this week, you walked out of the meeting of the Parliamentary Labour Party in a bit of, well, what my mum would call a cream puff. You were in a little... What on earth was that all about?
I just left the meeting to go to another commitment. This was written up as me, like, walking out of the meeting. I left the meeting I was going to anyway. But I mean, the convention is we don't discuss the intricacies of what happens at meetings of the Parliamentary Labour Party.
Well, let's not delve into the intricacies. I mean, the suggestion is that you left because, once again, your leader got it wrong as regards, you know, EU membership being prerequisite for a place in the single market. Are we close to the mark there?
Well, I'm not going to comment on what was said at the meeting, but in terms of the notion that you have to be in the European Union to be part of the EU single market, that is not correct. Norway, Liechtenstein and Iceland fully participate in the single market, but they are not members of the European Union, and there's no reason why the UK, if we leave, should not have that kind of relationship. And why, from a Labour perspective, should you be arguing that we stay in the single market and the customs union after we leave, if we leave, because it's the best way of promoting social justice, increasing equality, reducing poverty, and ensuring that we also have a rational debate about immigration. So if you believe in those things, which is what the majority of Labour Party members, trade unionists and other progressive people believe in, then of course you should be arguing for us to stay in the single market and the customs union after we've left the European Union and do what other non-EU countries have done.
We obviously, as you say, can't talk about the specifics of a PLP meeting, but I mean, what would it say about a senior politician who did not understand that very simple, straightforward point about membership of the single market?
Well, I mean, to be frank, there are a lot of us who understand a lot more about the European Union now than we did before this whole referendum debate started. So in terms of all the technicalities, of course, you know, people will make mistakes, but I know, you know, factually, we know that to fully participate in the single market does not require EU membership. That is a fact.
The party position currently, as we understand it, not sure of its formal policy, but it was announced by Keir Starmer yesterday, is that Labour will vote against any deal that does not confer the exact same benefits as membership of the customs union, the single market. I mean, that's not desperately far from your position, is it?
We have a position which has a goal without stipulating the model. So Keir quite rightly says we want to maintain the exact same economic benefits as being a member of the single market and the customs union. But the thing is, means shape ends, and we know with regard to the model that the only model that allows you to do that is actually continuing to fully participate and be a member of both of those things. Now, we haven't reached that place yet in terms of what happens after the transition period, that 2-year period after we leave the European Union. I and a huge number of people across the spectrum of the Labour Party, you know, spanning the whole spectrum of opinion, is of the view that we need to really go the next step, which is committing to being in the single market and the customs union, because that way we can really very effectively and most effectively take on the Conservatives' Tory hard Brexit.
But isn't the simple fact of the matter this? The single biggest line for the European Union is ensuring that we don't get a deal on those terms, that we end up with a worse deal. Otherwise, what is the point of being a member of the European Union? I mean, and given that, I mean, is there a deal that Labour wouldn't vote down at the end of this process?
Well, I'm not sure I agree with your interpretation of where the European Union's coming on this. Michel Barnier, who is the chief negotiator for the EU, has been clear that if the UK wants to stay in the single market and the customs union, it can do so, but it will need to adhere to its rules and obviously make a contribution. Now, Theresa May has taken those things off the table, which is curious given that she put a Tory hard Brexit to the British people at that June general election last year, which involved yanking us out of the single market and the customs union, and you know, to put it in kind of straightforward language, to basically have a very clean extreme break in terms of our relationship with the European Union, and she lost her majority. So if you want to talk about mandates to do things, she certainly doesn't have a mandate to pursue Brexit, because she lost her majority in the House of Commons.
True, but plenty of people who voted for Labour back in June last year did so to avert a hard Brexit.
That's right.
You know, some would suggest that was a pretty wasted vote.
Well, look, we haven't got to the end of the process, and of course this Brexit process is due to continue until May 2019, which is a scheduled departure date. So there's a long way to go yet. And what I would say is, look, I strongly believe that Brexit in the form that it was sold to the British people, certainly at the moment, is not transpiring to be what people thought it would be. People thought that we would be getting 350 million extra per week, £350 million extra per week for our NHS coming in as a result of us leaving the European Union. Instead, we're actually going to be paying a vast £39 billion divorce bill. And that's before you consider all the other elements that people were voting.
The blood is on the carpet. I mean, why don't you just say it? Why don't you just say, look, can we please have a second referendum because you believe that we made the wrong decision, you believe that we made a decision that will damage the UK irreparably?
What I believe is that Brexit, in the terms it was sold to the British people, is proving impossible to deliver, however competent the government.
If the
I'm clear.
Why not have a second referendum?
Let me finish answering your question. I don't get to decide this. In the end, I think the people do. And what I'm saying is Parliament has a duty to exhaust this process to try and deliver Brexit in the terms it was sold. Now, if that proves to be impossible, then of course we should have an open mind about what happens at the end of the process. And, you know, I'm not opposed in principle at all to us having a new poll on this, on the final deal, partly because, you know, there's a lot of talk about thwarting the will of the people. I don't see how you can thwart the will of the people if the people get the final say during this process. And so that certainly needs to be an avenue which we're open to. And frankly, I think, you know, Nigel Farage is very interesting on this because he clearly thinks that Brexit, in the terms he thinks it was sold to the British people, and he wants a hard Brexit and he thinks that's the only way to do it. He doesn't believe that's now going to happen. It's for the same reason that he is also now saying, well, look, I'm open to having a poll on this. But it wouldn't be, I don't think it would just be a replay of a 2016 poll, because 2016 was a debate about hypotheticals. Now the rubber has hit the road. We know factually what Brexit looks like. That's the big difference. And so if you had a new poll, it would be on a factual deal. This is what Brexit looks like, or staying in to fight for a different kind of European Union within. That would be the choice. Now, I don't think we're there yet, but I think we should certainly be open. In principle, I've got no objection to it.
Chuka Umana, lovely to see you. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.